that is really what has changed everything for me as a trader. Because, like I kind of talked about earlier, it's like it's finding these processes that work for you and make the most sense to you. And I noticed habit wise that when I do all three of these things, I'm just dialed.
Hello, everybody. This is Anthony for Investors Underground. In this episode, I get to speak with a young options trader and competitive powerlifter who's on a mission to connect the world of trading with lifting. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Tanner Owings, the strong trader. Hello, Tanner. Thank you for being here and taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks, Anthony, for letting me on. It's a really cool opportunity, and we met at Traders for a Cause, so it's kind of cool to see this all come full circle and to get to chat with you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's one of the great parts of Traders for a Cause and networking in general is you can go from, just meeting somebody very casually to getting to sit down and get to know more about them and just expand your network of people that you know and learn so much from everybody around you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, sharing all my little tidbits with trading and lifting. So I have so many crossovers, as a competitive lifter. So, there's a lot of things that actually go hand in hand with trading that I've learned and I've kind of built out like process wise. So, I always have these aha moments where I'm like, that reminds me of this, or this reminds me of that. So I know a lot of traders like exercise to a good extent at least. So hopefully anyone out there that lifts or just exercise in general, you could take some of these ideas and bring them over to your trading and hopefully make you a better trader.
Absolutely. And I'm looking to dig into some of those topics with you. But if it's okay with you, Tanner, I always like to allow the audience to learn a little bit more about the person that we're going to be talking with. So if it's okay, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in the stock market and trading?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been trading full time now for a little over 4 years. I quit my corporate job to pursue trading full time in October of 2019. So like I've always been like entrepreneurial, and trading itself is a very entrepreneurial endeavor, I would say. And I've always had like these entrepreneurial traits where, so I worked like a corporate job, and I was always trying stuff on the side. Like when I was at corporate, I would be like, okay, I try to build out like an app with some people. I try to do like drop shipping. I try to do like, I started like a gym like, for a little bit with some people. So I was always like trying like some sort of entrepreneurial thing. And I've kind of always had these traits in me. Like I remember actually when I was really young, my first like entrepreneurial thing ever is like in first grade. I remember it was crazy hair day, and I brought the can of hairspray. It was like this like where you could like color your hair with certain type of like colored spray. And I remember I brought the can to school and had all these people like being like, "Oh wait, like I want to get a spray," and I was like, "Okay, $2." And like I went home later that day, and I had like $40. My mom was like, "Where'd you get all this money from?" And I was like selling sprays and stuff. So it's like I guess I've had like those entrepreneurial traits. I'm always like trying to do that stuff like built in me. So I've always had those traits, and kind of just like right out of college, I kind of got into investing a little bit. 'Cause I started to make a little bit of money in my corporate job. And some friends started investing. They started telling me about the stock market and stuff like that. I didn't really know anything about it. And, we were just buying like long-term stuff and buying some Apple shares, buying some Tesla shares, whatever, kind of just watching whatnot. And then I remember in 2018 when the Bitcoin boom happened and Bitcoin first hit 10K, that really sparked my interest where I was like, okay, like this is kind of interesting, like kind of looked at a chart for the first time. And like I remember I bought some Bitcoin, and then like in a few days I made like $1,000, and I was like, whoa, like what is this? This is crazy. Like this trading? Like it's like I don't even know. So that initially really sparked my interest in it, and I started kind of like diving in a little bit there into the trading world of kind of just like seeing like what it is to buy and sell something. And in I think it was like late 2018, early 2019, I unfortunately came across the Reddit Wall Street Bets. And so for everyone out there that knows what Wall Street's Bet, if you don't know what Wall Street Bets is, it's basically just almost like a degenerate Reddit forum of these people like gambling money on options is what it is. And so I didn't even know what an option was or like how any of that worked or anything. So I ended up kind of like looking into it a little bit, and I remember I bought my first call. So I bought a call option on Netflix like on the way to work. And by the time I got to work, I had made like my entire day's pay, which at that time was like it was like $300 or something, on the way to work. And I was like, wait a second. like, am I on to something here? So like that's kind of like what like started it for me. And then from there, I kind of just started like really like diving in and wanting to learn. And I kind of just got like lucky where I came across an Instagram group called Authenticus Holdings. And Authenticus Holdings is it's like a chat room, kind of like Investors Underground, very like, and like similar esque of that, where it's just a community of traders and it was all about options trading. And so I just kind of got lucky because even to this day, I still trade with them. And they're really education based and like really focused on education and like wasn't one of those groups that really kind of like says like buy here, sell here. So it really like made me start to think about trading and like want to learn it a bit more. So my the owner of the group had a course. I ended up taking that course in like I think May of 2019. And that's really when I first actually was like, okay, like I'm gonna like learn about this. Like I'm gonna dive into this and learn, dove into it, started looking at some charts and stuff like that. And then, God, in October, so from May to October, it'd been a few months, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna quit my job and trade full time. So it's like I have a very unconventional story of how I did it, but like I was like 26 at the time. I'd always been trying these entrepreneurial things. I had about $50,000 saved up, so I was like, I have some money, at least to trade with, and then like kind of like to float me like while I can. But one good decision I did make is throughout all of this, I've worked in the restaurant industry a lot of my life. So even when I was like at corporate right out of college, I'd still work at the restaurant one day a week. I've worked at the same restaurant since I was like 15 years old, so I was super young. And like for me, it was a really good decision to be like, okay, well, if I quit the rest, or if I quit my corporate job to trade full time, I could pick up more hours at the restaurant at night, so at least like I had like some money coming in, and I could try to learn how to trade a little bit more stress free. So that's pretty much what I did. Is I kind of went back to the restaurant like almost full time at night. I was working like 30 hours a week, but that allowed me to focus on trading like in the morning and kind of live that lifestyle of a trader like during the day, and then I would work at night. So like that was really something that I'm really grateful that I did, because it probably would have been way more stressful if I didn't do it like that, because like I just took the leap and went, because I mean my first year, 2 years, like I didn't really make any money as a trader. So pretty much like that's how I got into it, and from there now it's the journey has really begun. So
That's incredible. And I think it's a wise decision to continue to find some sort of income as you're learning to trade rather than depending solely on trading to be your only source of income, because one can imagine that being potentially disastrous in the long term.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think, it's something initially where it's almost like a prideful thing for people, like, oh, I want to be this full-time trader. I don't like this is going to be my only income. But like for people out there, like like as you get into it more, it's like you want trading to be a part of your life. And like and it depends, obviously, it's different for everybody. But like personally, I think it's good to like be able to use trading as almost like a seed thing to fund other like endeavors that you want and kind of build from there. And it just takes the stress off of it, because there's this weird dichotomy where it's like if you focus on just trading as your only income and you put that much stress on you, like you're probably not going to do that well. Like it's really really hard. So having some other source of income, or see at least some sort of like amount of money saved up, really really can help you just like make better decisions as a trader and ultimately like create the longevity you're looking for.
And I mean, with anybody who gets into trading, money, extra money, is part of the allure to it. But it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, for you, those first, months or maybe even year was more about the education of trading than, making, loads of money and buying exotic cars with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's kind of like something I'm big on is like, it's all about education, because in this space, it's like, like just like I did, there's no barrier to entry. Like I just quit my job and started. And so it's like, you think about any other professional endeavor or professional career, it's like, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be some high caliber, skilled, paid job like that. Like you go to school for like 8 years before you actually can like go do the thing to like make the money. So absolutely, like if you do not have some sorts of education or like people you connect with, or like a group like Investors Underground or whatever it is, it's going to be hard. And so it's like I see people out there too that try to be like prideful with it. We're like, oh, I'm going to learn this on my own, I don't need anyone. And it's like, why? Like you're just like hurting yourself. So it's like that's something always I think about.
What were some of the first lessons that you learned in that first year of trading? Was there anything that you didn't know that you didn't know if you hadn't went and actually traded?
Yeah, so I mean, gosh, a majority of my education in the beginning was kind of just like diving into YouTube. The classic, like, okay, like good little pieces of info here and there. And until really like I took a course and through Authenticus Holdings, like that was really like when everything kind of structured it together and brought it together for me. And, I think like I said, being able to join a group and take some sort of course is really important because it is really valuable to kind of bring everything in. Um, I used to watch a bunch of S&B Capital videos at night too. That really, really helps me. So I think education wise, it's like you have to find something that like you connect with and it makes sense to you and it has interest to you. Because obviously, like in this, in the trading world, there's so many ways to skin the cat. So you have to find something that resonates with you. But like info in the beginning where I was just, I had no idea, like a lot of it's just like screen time, man, too. And like being able to understand how to create a thesis. Like I remember early on, God, I'm like, how do I know what to look for? It's like you're so confused. You're like, how do I build a setup? What's a setup? Like what, you don't know because there's no like guideline to this. There's not like just there's not a giant master playbook out there in the world. It's like, and then you start to understand, you're like, oh, like trading is its own unique individual business for the individual. So it's like just because I do something some way doesn't mean someone has to do it the same way at all. And you could both make money. It's like there's so many different ways to do it. So once that starts to click, and you start to kind of compile some data and start to like see some patterns and stuff and have things like start to help you and like realize that you're like, oh, this is actually what trading is. Like everything is just if then statements, if the market does this, then I want to do that. And then creating that thesis behind it is like that's what we do as traders, and then we back test it and try it and try it and try it. Yeah.
In terms of your trading style at the start of your trading career to where it is now, what is the evolution that you went through, and how would you describe your trading style as it is today?
Yeah. So evolution wise, I would say I started with just options. I was just an options trader. Like that's pretty much, I didn't even really do equities or like any of that. I never did small caps or any of that stuff. It just wasn't, well, honestly, just wasn't something I was super interested in. And so that's a big part, like I said, is you kind of have to find something that interests you. And options were just it for me. I just loved options. I thought options were so interesting, learning about all the details and multi ways behind, the Greeks and, and just how implied volatility works and, and then delta and all this stuff. I just thought it was really fascinating. And it was like, since it was a derivative of the stock and it was just cheaper barrier to entry too. It's like, right, you can buy a call for $100 or whatever, like, and you could potentially double it versus like you need a lot more capital to trade equities in that sense. So, so really like I started, like I said, with options. That's kind of really where I began. And then about about 2.5 years, 3 years into it, I realized there was like kind of a big gap in my edge. I just realized I didn't have as much edge when it wasn't earnings season. So I'll kind of get into this, but basically a lot of my options trading was derived around earnings season. I have a lot of setups based on like gap setups that have to do with earnings, news catalyst, stuff like that. So a lot of my edge was these names in play that had tons of high volume, like people were watching them and they had like maybe gaps or they were second day plays or something like that. So that's a majority of kind of like what I started with. But I realized when it wasn't earnings season, I was like, I don't like I felt like I didn't have much edge. I'm like, okay, well, there's some technical setups here and there, but I'm like, I don't fully know, is this going to work? How like this is going to work here, do this or do that. So for me, I noticed that, and then at the same time, my mentor had started getting into futures, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, and I kind of started getting, I wanted to dabble in it and kind of learn about it, and so I finally was like, you know what, like I'm going to try to do this, and so about 7 to 8 months ago, I finally just like took the dive, went into futures. The cool thing is, since I kind of already had like the mindset of like, you know, I took this time to learn options. It took me a long time. Like I knew it would take some time to learn futures and like learn strategy and all that stuff like that. So diving into the world of futures was like a whole thing where, it's been a journey, but like now I think it's been one of the best decisions for me because it brought out a lot of bad habits that I didn't realize I had as a trader because it makes you be super precise, super unique, and learning to be like, okay, like where is like a good like setup, where is like a clean setup, and not because like with options, I could get away with, stock and play that's gapping is like you can kind of chase momentum sometimes. And so with futures, you can't really do that. If you buy highs or like short lows, like you're probably going to get smoked most of the time. So that was something where futures really brought out. I had to be very, very specific and detailed. And I'm grateful for it though, because now it's like I feel like I have a lot more edge, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the interesting things there is that you went from something that was, not a great time for you to trade when it's not earnings season to finding so much more about yourself and potential strategies just based on something that, you might have been a weak spot for you just months prior to that.
Yeah. And, like learning really about, like I said, just like super specific details of like what I'm looking for is what has really helped me with futures the most.
Are there any specific technical indicators that you use on your charts that help you make some of these decisions as to whether you're going to get into a trade or when to exit a trade?
Yeah, so with futures, honestly, one of my main setups is just pull back to VWAP. So it's like I'm really big with VWAP. I don't use a lot of other indicators at all. I'm purely kind of just like a price action and market structure based trader. That's really just what I focus on. Just because like I never had much edge with like the MACD crossover and all this other type of stuff. Like I just couldn't find any value in it. But I have found tons of data and statistical edge on using VWAP, volume weighted average price, for those listeners out there that don't know what it is. And very simple. It's just like, if we're above it, want to stay above it. If we're below it, want to stay below it. Obviously, there's some variables where it's like, it's not always like that. It's not just purely black and white. But I noticed that like a lot of the times, if I could get really detailed of like how I'm looking for a pullback to VWAP setup and like what it looks like and things I need to see based on like what time does it need to happen, like where are we trading with like confluence at a key level, like all these things, it's just like adding conviction kind of to that thesis. It has been a really great indicator and it actually has helped me a lot. And a majority of my just day to day extracting money from the market type things has been using VWAP.
Okay, great. And what percentage of your trades now would you say are options based versus futures?
Great question. So honestly, in the past 7 months, I think I've taken like two options trades. That's it. And I've just been, because that was part of it too, is when I made the switch to futures, I was like, okay, how can I build something where, because I am like primarily like an income-based trader. Like it's like I like to have like a daily goal where I bring money in and, I'm not trying to like swing for the fences. Because for me, it's like I said, like trading for me has always been about like freedom, flexibility in my schedule. It's like it's something that I love that I can be up early, I can trade, and I can go on with the rest of my day because I have so many other things I want to do. So for me, really, like pretty much I haven't taken any options trade in the past 7 months because I have been dedicating everything to learning these future skills. And now I'm like, I think if I do go back to options at all, I'm probably just going to be like extra, extra, extra selective on it and just like be careful because it's like now I have so much edge trading futures. I'm like, why would I want to go back to options almost type thing?
That's really interesting that this has become, futures has become sort of your bread and butter now, whereas before it was options. Just kind of speaks to the importance of constantly evolving as traders.
Correct, correct. Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing is, you have to be open-minded. And I've talked with Lance about this kind of in detail where um he's like, you have to understand that as you develop, like you're probably going to gain edge in different places here and there, and you just can't have your blinders on to being like, oh, this doesn't work. And then like I have gotten like advice from what I do like from like my mentor, advice I've gotten from him. So my mentor is the owner of Authenticus Holding. His name is Kyle Janis, and he's guided me like tremendously throughout my journey. It's like big shout out to Kyle. I'm super grateful for him. And a big thing for him, which I have taken because I like setting up my like life and schedule like this, is like build your trading around a system that you want to enjoy. So it's like for me, it's like I am done trading every day by 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I don't really even look for setups past that because like I want to be done by 9. It's like I do not want to sit here and like keep taking trades. It's not something I'm interested in at all. And so for me, like that is just something I'm building, and I'm like I don't really care what happens after 9. Yeah, there probably is edge there, here and there, but for now, like that's a big thing that I've built and I like it. But in terms of adapting as a trader, another good example is I used to be a huge opening drive trader. I always trade the first of the open, the first minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. I would trade that a lot, and then now I've had to adapt with futures because I have noticed I have more edge and I am more precise with my entries and exits. And based on the setups that I'm like kind of detailing and documenting, not until at least 20 to 30 minutes after the open. So that was a big change I had to make. So I had to get used to that habit of me wanting to trade the open and be like, no, you need to sit, you need to wait. Like it's like you have to. So that's part of the adapting thing that you talked about is like, you have to like gather that information, understand it, and then be able to adapt accordingly based on like what it's telling you.
Incredible. And one of the things that I hear, more traders say as they get older, especially, I know Nate has mentioned this, is whether you're trading to live or you're living to trade. And it seems like for you, you've already discovered the importance of knowing why you want to trade and being able to prioritize your life around living it the way you want to versus just trading to trade. So I think that's pretty incredible and worthwhile to note. One of the questions that I wanted to also ask Tanner is, would you be able to share, one trade or one set of trades that you think really highlights your trading style?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of like I mentioned, the pullback to VWAP is like one of my biggest things. So I want to share basically the importance of this indicator and how you can just use it to read information. And I think I have a really good intraday chart I can share with you guys to kind of like show you exactly what I'm looking for, kind of just what I described and how I've built nuances behind this in order to be specific with my entries and exits on the chart. So if we want to go into it here, have an intraday chart of QQQ. So very simple, kind of just at the open, we're really weak initially. And something I like to look for, like I said, like I don't like to trade that first 20 minutes because I notice I just don't have as much edge. Sometimes the markets are trying to find their footing in that first 20 to 30. So for me, I'm kind of just gathering information and data in this first 20 to 30 minutes. So in the first 20 to 30 on this QQQ chart, I'm noticing that first of all, there's two areas of confluence here. One is that level I have marked that's prior day low. And so, kind of as a rule of thumb from data I've collected, it's like if we're opening under prior day low and we're consistently rejecting it and we can't even get above it, I'm like, okay, that's a sign of weakness. And then you pair that with the purple line here, which is VWAP. Ignore like the teal line, that's just like a period moving average, but it's just like a momentum indicator. Sometimes I have that up. That's my only other indicator I have, but it's like, don't worry about that. The purple line is VWAP. So we're consistently rejecting prior day low, and we're consistently staying under VWAP, and we can't really close above it or even really get that close to it at all. So I'm like kind of gathering this information and that data the first 20 minutes, like I said. And there's a big thing for the markets that I've noticed where if we make fresh highs or fresh lows past 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on my chart here it's 7 a.m. because I'm on the West Coast. You generally want to trade in the direction of the break. Now, always this isn't an always thing, so it's like everyone out there be like, "Oh, you said to do this," but it's like generally this is something I've noticed because we'll have like news data come in, and this will be a catalyst to kind of maybe push one way or another and see which side of the tug of war kind of wants to go one way or another. So, like I said, I've already collected all this data so far the first 20 to 25 minutes where it's like, okay, we're staying under prior day low. We can't even get above it. We're rejecting VWAP the whole time. So now into 7 a.m., we get a little pop and we can see that buyers are attempting to push us higher. And we get the push above VWAP there, but we get another close. As I kind of like annotate here, it's like we get the push into VWAP, but we can't get above it and we still close below it. So here is an area where I'm like, okay, we got another rejection of VWAP, another rejection of prior day low. It's 7 a.m. This is a good area to establish a short position. Get short, putting my risk simply just basically right above like the high of that candle. and taking the short and looking to take it into low a day and then potentially a break lower. So pretty much that's what happens here is, you can take the short right after, like probably around like 7:05, put your risk above the candle that popped into the highs there. And then I like to scale out. That's kind of like a big part of my trading is I'm scaling out of my position. So I'm always covering some into low a day because especially with the futures markets, is like they love to get like really close to low a day or like barely like overshoot. And that is something where I'm like, I just want to put money in my pocket to be like, okay, like I've locked some in of this trade. So it's like I always would cover some into the breakdown right here to cover some no matter what. And then one of the systems I've been trying to build with momentum is what's called like a 2-minute trailing stop system. And I've gotten this from my mentor. He's actually helped me a lot with this, where as you can see on this chart, we're pushing down and like a very simple rule of thumb is you just let those runners run until you get a break of the previous candle high. So in a downtrend like this, is like there's never a candle that gets above the previous candle high until this last one at the end where it says 2-minute trailing stop and I have the arrow. It's like, yeah, I kept going down a little bit more, but that candle would have ticked me out. So ideally, that's kind of where I would have exited. And with this, I think it's really important to, Lance talks about this a lot, and he's actually helped me with this, is like going to the nuances and the details of it. It's like, so for me, understanding that like that first 20 minutes, I don't have as much edge on this VWAP setup. Like I need to wait. That was just something through observation and documenting and playbooking and time that I did figure out. And until you start to notice things like that, it's like, like no one's going to tell you this. You're not going to find it like, you have to observe these things. And this is part of screen time, right? It's like I've been staring at charts for 4 years, but when you start getting really detailed of like what you want to see and like how you can build it, yeah, are there going to be times where like we hold VWAP in the first 10 minutes and then we rip and you miss your entry? Yeah, it is. But how often does that happen versus the other scenario? That's kind of like what I more am about. And I just noticed through data collection that like the closer we get to 10 a.m. for that reversal time and we get some sort of test of VWAP or whatever, it's like it's a higher odds probability trade, and like that's the trade I'm trying to take because that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Tanner. I really appreciate you going through and annotating that chart for us. One of the questions that I had was, in terms of the review process, and you touched on this a little bit, how important is it for you to be collecting data about, what's working in the market, what you're observing day after day, and go through that, review it, find patterns and test them out. This constant review process that I heard you, kind of alluding to in your answer and your breakdown there.
Here's kind of my sauce, if you will. So I've been obsessed with the review process kind of since the beginning. That's something that I've done very well in terms of trial and error, I would say. That's mainly because like my mentor Kyle was like he's diligent with review. He's huge on journaling and stuff like that. So I've learned a lot of these practices from him. And then trying to kind of implement over time, like what works and what doesn't for me personally, has been the bigger part of the trial and error. So with this review process, I have this thing called the big three. So I know we haven't talked too much on the powerlifting side of things yet, but we'll get into that in a second. But in powerlifting, we have squat, bench, and deadlift. Those are the three main lifts, like what I compete in and what I test. And so they're the big three. So I created this thing where I call it the big three in terms of review, and it's three components. It's one, the daily report card, two, individual trade review slash journaling of that, and then three is going to be playbooking the easy money setup. So these processes I have gotten from a combination of people, a combination of Kyle, my mentor, from Lance, and honestly, just like tweaking them to making them mine and like what makes sense to me has helped me the most because it's like, again, with these review processes, there's not like one size fits all. Like there might be some sort of header or column that benefits you, but you have to understand what it is. So maybe it's something like, where was the best entry here? And you really get fixated on that. Or like, what was your main mistake? You get fixated on that. But it's like the whole idea of what I'm trying to say with these three things is like, I've altered them in a way that really fit me, but I have been able to teach this stuff to people and it's really, really helped them. So I have been mentoring quite a few traders, and like the number one feedback I always get is like these review processes help them so much because a lot of traders just don't do review or like really know how to do it. So through like all my years of trial and error and kind of compiling this stuff is really like what has just helped me become a more consistent trader and just a more methodical trader and just been like so beneficial. So, kind of getting into that to break it down, first I have the daily report card. So I actually just picked this up a few months ago from Traders for a Cause. So I had, I chatted with Lance there a bit and chatted with Bella, which was cool. It was great to connect with them. And I kind of told them like with my futures trading, because one of my biggest issues was I was just over trading like a madman. Like I was just like, it's so easy to press the button here and there. And I was like, why do I keep doing this? This is ridiculous. And they were like, yo, you should do a daily report card. And I was like, okay, like what is it really? And so they sent me like Lance had like a template on Twitter, and I kind of like basically recreated that and refined it a bit for like my style of trading and like segments and stuff. But basically, the whole point of the daily report card is you focus on a process oriented goal for the day and you grade yourself based on just that process goal. So with this, it's like it doesn't even have to do with your P&L. So it's like really simple for me. It was over trading. I'm like, okay, like how do I reduce this? So my mentor Kyle was like, he's like, okay, well, he's like, you have an overtrading issue. He's like, why don't you make your process goal for that? Take 2 trades a day, no matter what, like that's it. And so I was like, oh crap. And I was taking like, 6, 7, 8 trades a day. So that was really, really hard for me. But using this report card, I was like, okay, it's pretty much just like black and white in terms of grading. It's like if I take 2 trades, it's an A. If I take 2 trades within like a good system and setup and stuff like that, it's an A. If I take 2 trades and it's like, like they're not really within the system of what you're trying to do, like maybe not a VWAP setup or something kind of random, it's a B. And then really simple, if I took 3 trades and broke it, it was an automatic C, like no matter what. And so I kind of just went back to like, the school times. I'm like, all right, well, if you get A's and B's, you're doing good, right? So I started to use this on a day-to-day basis. And the report card is so great because it's something that you go through while you're trading in the session, and it's something you do pre-market, and it's something you do after the close. So it's like it's encompassing the entire framework of the day, and it doesn't take long to do, but it keeps you kind of like in check if you're trading and what you're doing. And you have like segments throughout the report card. So basically, you just do stuff like temperature check, like how you're feeling. Like are you like being consistent with your size? You're taking notes on like, things that are happening. And I'm just answering these important questions and just like asking myself basically like, am I following the process goal of take only 2 trades? And it's like that becomes very simple. So like the biggest takeaway from the daily report card is like it's a focus on process, and it makes you just start when you start to see the A's and B's of following it, it starts to like build this confidence and conviction of you as a trader. And the cool part is at the end it has this segment where it's like it talks about basically like how to make changes for tomorrow. And I think like that's something with the review process where like if you're a struggling trader out there right now and you don't know like what you need to improve upon, you're not collecting enough data because it's like you're not taking notes like this, you're not doing stuff like this, you're not implementing processes like this. Like every single day after my session, I always know, oh, I screwed up there. I need to fix this for tomorrow. And it's like if you don't know that, you need better processes, stuff like this, in order to like learn that pretty much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your daily report card. I think that's really, really helpful for the viewers who are watching to be able to see what that looks like from a trader like yourself and just how inspiring it is to know that there's traders out there who are doing temperature checks before they even start trading. They're documenting what their process looks like during the actual trading day, and then they're going back later on and reviewing. I mean, going through that amount of work, I mean, speaks very much to the amount of diligence and prioritization that you're putting on your trading. One of the questions that I have, Tanner, is for those out there who might have a hard time finding ways to break their bad habits. Can you talk about maybe 1 or 2 ways that traders can make better habits so that they can really evolve their trading? Because if there's one thing that a lot out there who've traded before know, it's really hard to break some of those bad habits. And my question is, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so kind of again going back to the daily report card, like that was just the biggest thing that like it was so black and white for me where I was just like, I had like these defining moments where I just you go through what's like called like the loop is like, you do some good trading and then you have like one day where you just do something completely stupid and you just screw it all up and then you kind of like restart from like a baseline of where you were. And like you will have a moment where a good example for me was like max loss too. So it's like, max loss like $1,000 on the day, let's say. Every time I would get hit that $1,000 of loss, I had like this defining moment where I'm like, I can keep going and try to make it back, which sometimes does work, but most of the time it gets me hurt and I end up being like down 2 or 3K on the day or something like that. So like, I have those defining moments for habit wise where I'm like, do I want to continue this loop? And until you like actively make the decision to stop, um, it's something where it's like it'll just eat away at you. So, but in terms of like habits, this is actually kind of a good area to go into. Basically, like my background is like a powerlifter, so it's like a big thing for me. So I've been competing in the sport of powerlifting for 7 years. Been lifting weights for 13 years. Lifting weights has been something that is just ingrained in me. It's a habit. It's just a part of my life. It's what I do. It's never a question of like, oh, am I going to work out today? Just like, what time am I going? That's like all I ever think about, right? And so that is a habit that is so ingrained in me. And I think like a lot of traders have good habits in other areas of their life. They just need to figure out how to bring that over to trading. So for me, like I said, like that habit of lifting has been ingrained in me, so it's just something I always do. And as a power lifter, I have a powerlifting coach, and I go through structured programming with my powerlifting in order to gain strength. Because like as a strength athlete and gaining strength, in order to gain strength, you go through basically blocks of rep work and volume, intensity, all this stuff. And I don't go into the gym without a plan every day, number one. Just like as a trader, you shouldn't go into the session without a plan of what you're looking for, what you're doing. Every day in the gym, I follow my prescribed work of that program. So it's like, if I'm feeling really good, I'm like, I want to max out, but it's like, you don't know, your program says you have to hit 4 sets of 6 on squat at like 82%. I'm like, well, I have to hit 4 sets of 6 on squat at 82%. It's like it's this non-negotiable thing. It's like I have a plan, I have a structure, I have a bigger macro goal in mind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to gain strength in the long run and like compete and get better. So for me, that structure has always been there in my mind because it's just what I do as a power lifter. It's like I go through my training programs, I go through the volume, I go through the intensity, I go through the strength work, I peak, and then I test my numbers. So as a trader, it's like, I'm like, okay, well, I have these habits already as a powerlifter of being able to follow the structured plan of like what I need to do. Why can't I just do that in trading? And so, like, I started kind of realizing that and bringing over some of those concepts. And, for me, like, this is where like kind of the whole futures thing started to click as well. Is like in powerlifting, it could be like really, really monotonous, where it's like, you're doing a lot of the same boring stuff all the time. But like, it's different rep ranges and whatnot here and there. But the idea, like I said, is you're following the plan and you kind of have a goal of like what you're trying to hit for the day. Okay, I'm trying to get like this much volume in for the day, or like, do this or do that. So with my futures trading, I figured out that like if I can capture 10 points a day on ES, I was like, that basically pays my bills more than enough, and I can like make a living off of that. And I'm like, and then from there, it's just a matter of scalability with contracts, right? It's like the same trade, just scaling up with size. So I kind of figured that out. So it's like for me, going into the session every day, it's like I don't want to limit myself to 10 points, but I kind of have that goal of like, okay, like, like if I'm up like 13, 14 points on the day already, it's like I don't want to risk losing 6 of those points, 8 of those points, right? It's like I want to like just be like, okay, I hit my goal, I want to continue. But like again, like most days, I'm going for the base hits. I'm trying to just capture those 10 points. I'm not trying to swing for the fences. I'm not going for home runs. But this is a great comparison I love in the strength training world is when so after I do all the work as a powerlifter in terms of like my programming, like getting so like I have a competition coming up in 6 weeks. I've been going through this blocks of like basically building all the volume, building a bunch of strength work, doing a lot of rep work, and now like the reps are starting to taper a lot, and I'm starting to do heavier weights and heavier intensities because I'm getting closer to my competition. So when my day comes that I compete, I'm going to be able to be ready to push and go all out. And I compare that in training to where like you've been studying your setup, you like the market's on your side, you see it crystal clear. That is like when you have to add size. It's like that is your pitch. That's your big pitch. And then like everyone knows like those don't come all the time. Like they might come like once a quarter, or it's like it's during it's these for these certain times where really things start to line up and you really see it, and you're like, I have to add size here. It's like that's the same comparison of maxing out. But other than that, most days, it's like, we're flowing through the market. I'm trying to just honestly just capture those base hits and just like remind myself like I'm trying to create a living off of this, and I'm doing it through these structured habits of strength training, which have helped me become a better trader ultimately.
And if you're looking to become a better trader through mentorship, education, or technology, Investors Underground might be able to help. You'll have access to courses and mentors to learn from, some of the best technology available for scanning stocks and breaking news, and access to the chat rooms where you'll find a vibrant community of focused traders sharing their trade ideas in real time every day. You'll also have access to the updated morning broadcast where Nate and other members of the IU community share their trade plan for the day ahead during the pre-market session. You'll have access to the midweek study session with Sam, webinars, moderator watch lists, and all the other resources that Investors Underground has to offer. Listeners of the podcast can access special deals at investorsunderground.com/YouTube. And now, back to our interview with Tanner. You understand that the process is the very important part, so that when those setups come, that's your pitch. That's the time to really go all in. And I think it's incredible that you're leveraging your background with powerlifting in order to complement your trading and inform your trading in a lot of ways. One of the questions I have is in terms of rules and safeguards. What type of rules are you able to implement in trading that you might have been able to adapt from your background in powerlifting to keep yourself safe?
Like being smart about going into the session. I would say that like those are like some rules that I have. Like obviously like I have I have like hard rules such as like like max loss and like like number of trades and stuff like that. Like that is stuff that has really helped me. But in terms of like bringing like that stuff from my powerlifting background into this, a good one is like not tr so like I'll never lift if I'm like malnourished, right? So it's like if I haven't eaten in like 3 or 4 hours, I'm not going to go train. And I know some people out there are like, oh, I train fasted and stuff like that, but like in the strength training world, like you need glucose, you need glycogen, like you need carbs, like it's like you need salt, you need water. It's like you need these things to perform better in as a strength athlete, and I know that. And so automatically it's like I'm like I have to get food before I go train, and it's like and those are things where it's just a non-negotiable for me. So, in terms of trading, thinking about risk in that aspect is actually a really really good comparison, because a huge one is like trading when you're sick. I think that's like one of the biggest ones. Is so many people are like, oh, well, I work from home, I can trade, but it's like trading is a performance sport. So like if your brain's tired or like you don't feel good, like no matter like how much you think you're going to like you're going to be okay, it's like cognitively you're not going to function the same. It does not work like that. And so, like that is something I pulled from that for sure. Is like when I'm sick now, like I'll probably just take the day off. I'm like, no, I don't want to risk it, because like the pain of thinking like losing money because I was stubborn and just wanted to trade for like maybe a dopamine rush is not worth it's just not worth it. So I'm like, I'd rather just be safe. I'd rather be careful. Um, Another thing that's helped me is the Aura Ring. I got this from I got this like just kind of from the recovery world, and actually Lance talked about it a lot. I think and I saw kind of how he used it in the trading world. My mentor used an Aura Ring as well, and it's cool because it gives you like this readiness score, basically saying like how ready you are for the day based on how you recovered, how you slept, all these type of things. And so now for me, in my daily report card every morning when I do my temperature check, I write down my readiness score. And I've noticed that when my readiness score is below 70, I tend to not make the best decisions. And I'm like, huh, okay, well, that is a direct correlation for me of like my recovery and my performance. So I'm like, automatically it's size down, be careful. If I see it under 70, like it's automatic, because I've had the days where I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. And then I like started looking at the data and I was like, wow, this is like, I'm not doing as good on these days. I need to be more careful. So now it's more of like like in my brain, it's like, oh, like be cautious when I see it below 70. So that actually has been a really good tool and a safeguard that have I brought over kind of from like the recovery, like lifting side of world over into my trading.
One of the things that stands out to me is that you have such a very interesting and thought out routine to the point that you're even putting your readiness score into your daily report card. Could you talk a little bit more about your routine and how important it is for you to be at your maximum in terms of performance for the day? And what does your routine even look like on a day to day basis?
Yeah, so I mean, routine is everything. I'm such a creature of habit, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs in general are creatures of habit because we just like to streamline stuff, right? It's like the more you can kind of streamline stuff and not be like guessing about things, the more you're going to be consistent in what you're looking for. And as traders, like we want consistency. Like that is the name of the game. That is the goal. So like I wake up pretty much at the same time every single day, roughly about an hour to an hour and a half before market open. Like I wake up at 5:15, and so it's like give or take 15 minutes depending on kind of how slow I am getting out of bed. But wake up pretty much the same time every day. And from there, like I prepare for the market open. And that for me looks like just like turning on my computer, getting to my desk, starting to kind of look through charts for a little bit, and start to kind of fill out the daily report card. So I always have like a pre-market plan area where I'm like, okay, like I've looked through charts, I've kind of set all my levels on the charts. And then from there, I'm kind of writing out my plan. I'm taking my temperature check. I'm getting everything ready. I'll cruise downstairs, maybe make a cup of coffee or some tea or something, grab a banana. I'm on the West Coast, so it's like I'm not going to make a huge full breakfast at 5:30 in the morning. But at least I got a banana, so I get like some fuel in my brain, drink some water, um, and then I trade. And then after that, I like I said, my hard cutoff every day is 9 a.m. So I finish by 9 a.m. and then I go make like a big ass breakfast downstairs. And then I'm really big on I love reading, and it's funny, I used to hate to read, but I love to read like personal development or like some sort of like trading book, like just daily. And this is actually back to habits. Like I hated reading so much, but I knew it would be good for me, especially as I became like, especially I got into the trading world. I'm like, well, if I want to learn, I need to read. But I was like, but I hate reading. I was like, okay, well, what if I break this down into smaller segments? I was like, what if I just try to read 10 pages a day? And so that's basically a daily habit now that I have ingrained is I just go and read. And I had to like get away from my house, I figured out. So like I go drive. Luckily, I live right by the beach in Orange County. So I drive like by the beach and literally just sit in my car and read. I read 10 pages. And it's like I do that every single day, some sort of book on like personal development or trading, whatever it is. And then usually I'll take a walk. And I just think walking is so good. This is like kind of back to like, I don't care if you lift weights or don't, or like it's like everyone I think needs to move to some extent and get some sort of movement. And so like walking is just like one of the best ways to get your mind flowing. There's so many studies that show like walking like activates like more creative pathways and all these things. So I walk every day. And once I finish my walk, I come back. I usually go to train and lift like roughly around like 11 o'clock, come back after that, and like this is where usually I'll start to, depending on the day, I'll have one-on-one clients that I mentor and I coach, and talk about these review processes, all this kind of stuff that we're chatting about. And then after that, I like go into my actual like trading review work itself for me. So like I'll finish up my daily report card, like the after the close reflection part. I'll do my individual trade review and logging, which I didn't really actually get a chance to touch on earlier, but basically, I do like individual trade review where it's like I'm going over every trade I took for the day and writing details and notes like within that and kind of like really breaking down the individual trade itself. And then I also take kind of like, psychological notes on how I was feeling about the trade, all these type of things. And then my last part, I think actually is super, super important, is what's called playbooking the easy money setup of the day. So this is like the final thing I do of like my review for my trading for the day. And I got this from my mentor, Kyle. And basically, it's not reviewing your trade. Sometimes it can be if you took it, but what you're doing is like within your system, within like the process you're trying to build. Like everyone sees this every day where it's like you see something where you're like, oh, that was a good setup. That was really good, but I missed it. Oh, this is clean right here on the chart. I go back and I find that within the system I'm trying to build, and I go, this is the easiest money setup of the day. Let me document and write about it. So basically, I have sections within it that I document and I write about that easy money setup. And it's very similar to kind of how I do trade review, but it's going to be like big picture, like what are we looking at? Like what's the overall big picture of the setup I'm looking for? Then the actual setup itself, I'm describing it. And like I said, it's like since I maybe didn't take that trade, I'm talking about like what it looks like in terms of, like maybe like market gapped under prior day low, and then I'm looking for like a reclaim or like whatever. Like you're being like thorough and like and explaining the setup in detail, and you're writing like these nuances of like, okay, maybe we broke above VWAP. It was right around 7 a.m. Exactly what I looked for that reversal time. We got a retest of VWAP. This is my area to establish risk. This offers a great risk reward, targeting, first the high a day and then like farther than that. So playbooking this easy money setup, doing this every day, it's crazy. It's something that has trained my brain to look for that type of setup day in and day out. And so like this exercise that's why I call it the big three, because it's like the daily report card, actually reviewing your own trading, and then playbooking this easy money setup. Doing these three habits every single day, it's like you don't even have to review because like you're just doing this work all the time, and it's starting to like imprint in your subconscious. And and for me, that is really what has changed everything for me as a trader. Because, like I kind of talked about earlier, it's like it's finding these processes that work for you and make the most sense to you. And I noticed habit wise that when I do all three of these things, I'm just dialed. Like it's like I'm in tune with myself as a trader. I'm in tune with what I'm looking for based on my system, my setups, my trading business I'm trying to build. And just these three things, like it's like these are the daily habits which really actually like set you apart and make you understand what you're looking for as a trader. So, so really, like I said, habits are everything, and that's why I'm just huge on it. And those three things have just helped build me as a trader ultimately, and just, I love it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And it sounds like the easy money trade is definitely something traders should be thinking about. I think that's a great concept. And I know Lance has a similar sort of concept, which is about the broken slot machine, or where you might have been able to find the trade that was the easiest money in the market for that day. A little bit different, but there are a lot of similarities there as well. I think that's great for traders to think about. And what recommendations would you give to traders to really force them to get more consistency into their routine? How could they instill some of these habits that long term could be beneficial for them, at least in their trading, if not, in their life itself and being healthier?
Yeah, so I would just say implementing a process that reinforces it. And by that, I mean do the same shit every day. It's like do it at the same time every day. Just get used to it. And like a big part I think is loving your schedule. Like I think this is such a huge part of it. And like I said, for me, this is why I wanted to get out of corporate initially, is like I loved the idea of my own freedom of my schedule and how I could build that. And I just didn't want to be confounded like the 9 to 5. It was like I just didn't want to do it. Even like when I made the choice to go back to the restaurant, like that was my personal choice to go work at night. So it was still in a way like creating my schedule, which was cool. So like simply having the love for your schedule and doing what you know like you need to do on a day-to-day basis, because like trust me, there's days where like I don't want to review, I don't want to playbook, I'm like, oh, I still got to do this, like, but I know that it's just like if you just suck it up and do it, it starts to like build in you like the trader you want to be. And like it's only until you do something so often and then you start to see the rewards from it in terms of like how it's paying off, that you realize like, oh, this is important, like I got to keep doing this. And like for me with lifting, like that was always the thing, is like it's just something that I did and I always did it. And then like I never thought that I would be deadlifting 700 plus pounds. I never thought I would squat 600 pounds. Like those thoughts never even crossed my mind. It was just like, oh, I go and I do the work. Oh my gosh, okay, I'm getting stronger. Okay, this is cool. Like, okay, now I'm starting to see like how this pays off of me just doing this work all the time. And then I start getting obsessed with just the work itself of just doing it because I just like it. And then like I said, as a byproduct, like I get stronger. So it's like with trading, I take that same principle and I keep reminding myself, and it like has finally showed through where it's like just get obsessed with like these processes and the work that you're supposed to do as a trader. And as a byproduct, you're like, oh shit, I'm making money. Like it's like this is how it's supposed to be, and it's cool. So yeah, I would say for that for that question, like how to instill consistency, is maybe log it, like just realize how much it's actually going to help. Try it for just a week, try it for 2 weeks, try it for 3 weeks. Always start small and just see how kind of far you can go. Because there's also times where you're going to try to implement habits and stuff that maybe just they won't stick, and maybe you realize that's not for you. But then there's going to be other times where you're like, oh, this is really, really helping me. Like I have to keep doing this, that type of stuff.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that you've fallen in love with your process and you've seen that it works for you, and you fall in love with your schedule, which I think all traders out there, if they can manage to do that, I think that's definitely a plus for them in their trading and have ripple effects into their other parts of their life. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of incorporating some sort of fitness into a trader's routine? What type of benefits can traders see if they're able to move around for a little bit every day? I know you talked a little bit about this, but I wanted to specifically carve out some time to touch upon that. And for the traders who might have physical impairments, how can they be able to reap the rewards of being able to exercise in some capacity or another?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I'm just a huge advocate of movement, right? And so that's kind of the cool thing in the powerlifting world is it might just be squat, bench, and deadlift, but I have become like a student of, I guess, like kinesiology in a way, where it's just like I'm really obsessed with mechanics and how things work because like as you get more advanced in the skill of powerlifting, it's like, squatting 600 pounds, I can't just like drop to the floor and stand up. It's like I'm thinking about like where is my pelvis, like where's my rib cage, like I'm thinking about all these little things. So I'm getting obsessed with movement. And like, regardless if you want to lift heavy or like lift at all for that matter, I just think there's some sort of movement every day someone should have. And that could just be as simple as walking. That, it's like maybe you like to swim, maybe you like to ride a bike. It's like it creates like movement is literally the key to health and longevity. And you'll see people in their 90s that move really well, and you're like, whoa, how do you move so well? And they're like, I've just never stopped moving. I like walk every day, I do this. And that is always something that's fascinated me because I'm like I've taken these notes throughout my life. I'm like the more people move, the healthier and longer they live, and just like the better they feel mentally. And then on the opposite side of the coin, you see people that are like in their maybe their 40s or 50s where like they're stiff and they like can't even like bend over to pick something up. And they're like, oh, well, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I haven't been to the gym or haven't walked or exercised in, a decade or something like that. And for me, like that is ultimately, it was just like a big thing where I saw, I was like, okay, movement is so, so, so important. And also, I think some sort of movement in general just adds a sense of accomplishment to your day. And that sense of an accomplishment is like, it's something where it creates you feeling good. Like I've never left the gym going like I'm pissed I went to work out. Like it's never ever. It's like I don't think anyone is ever like I regretted like going on a run or I regretted they don't. So I would say it's like movement is so important. Figure out some sort of movement that you like. And it's like if you don't like to move at all, I don't know, get up and get walking. It's like find something. There has to be something that interests you in terms of movement. And so do that every single day. It just helps clear your mind. It helps a lot. For people that are impaired, I would say, like let's say someone's in a wheelchair, for example, um, they still could move other parts of their body. They still could potentially like lift weights like upper. Um, it's like I think the question of like if someone is like fully, fully physically handicapped, that's kind of like a deeper thought question. Actually, I couldn't really answer. But I just think some sort of movement just creates so much benefit to clarity, thinking, process, everything in your day.
One other topic I wanted to touch on, Tanner, is about networking and the power of networking. So, we got a chance to meet at Traders for a Cause in Vegas 2023, and I just wanted to ask what that experience was like for you to meet so many traders in real life, and whether or not you've been able to incorporate some of the lessons that you learned, or make some of those connections even stronger since then.
Yeah, absolutely. So, God, honestly, Traders for a Cause feel like it changed everything for me in my trading career. Like, it felt like it was the catalyst for me to really embody the trader I fully wanted to become because I was so on the fence of like so close to breaking through some of these like bad habits I had, like I'm profitable, I was making money, but I just still would have these giant days where I'd give so much back and stuff like that. And since Traders for a Cause, like my P&L, my mental health and everything has been like literally almost the highest it's ever been. Like I feel so much, I feel so good. And like honestly, that's because I went to Traders for a Cause. I didn't know anyone. I don't know a soul. I don't know you. I don't know. Like, I knew of people in the industry, but I didn't actually know anyone. So I flew out to Vegas completely by myself. I just knew it was also like a personal growth thing, too. And it's like, this is something of entrepreneurship for all you traders out there. It's like, put yourself in the room, make yourself feel uncomfortable. It's not going to feel the most comfortable, but like, I was like, I have to do this because I like this industry. I love trading and I want to learn more about it and I want to connect with these people. So, I went there, I didn't know a soul, and by the end of the weekend, people were coming up to me. They were like, "Aren't you the strong trader?" Like, "Oh, what up?" And I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool." So, I think what helped me with that, like a lot too, is like I grew up in the restaurant industry, like I said. So, like, kind of being able to like connect and chat with others is kind of just a strength I've had personally. So, you know, just being able to chat with everyone and just realizing it's like everyone's kind of in the same boat as you. Is like everyone's trying to figure out this game of trading. We're trying to learn from each other. We're trying to help each other, and like no one ever is going to be like an ass to you. It's like pretty much most people I met were all so genuine and so cool, and connecting with this group, connecting with that group, and like honestly, like I said, it's created Traders for College has created so much momentum for me, and I'm just like so grateful for the event and like all these connections now, like being able to lift with Lance and like chat with you and like connect with Bella and stuff. Like it's like I literally used to go to sleep watching S&B Capital videos. So like just even to like be able to chat with Bella and just like hang out with him, I'm like, this is crazy. Because it was just like it's super cool. So yeah, it's like networking is so powerful, and it is a skill in itself of just being able to like put yourself out there and talk, but it's like do it because like you don't have anything to lose, and it's going to be nothing but beneficial for you. So
And do you have to be a profitable trader at the top of your trading game in order to be at Traders for a Cause? What can you tell those who are maybe struggling? Should they be going to Traders for a Cause?
yeah, if you're not making eight figures, you can't go. I'm just kidding. So, no, absolutely. Like I met quite a few traders that weren't even profitable. They were just honest about it and they owned it. And I was like, right away, I was like, I respect you. I was like, that is awesome that like you're here, you're putting yourself out here, like you're trying to learn. And like you do not have to be a profitable trader. Like I have 4 years of experience and I was on like the low end. It's like most people I talk to, I'm like 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. I'm just like, holy crap, like I'm like the baby, like talking with everyone. And just like I think a really good thing you can try to think about is remember, like whoever you are as a person is like there's something that makes you unique and special. Like in whatever that is, like people are going to want to talk to you about it and learn from you. And it doesn't have to be training, right? It's like for me, it's like part of my thing is like I happen to be a really good weightlifter. It's like I'm really good at strength training. So people were interested in that and I could like provide value and talk to people about that because it's my skill that I've been building a lot of my life. Where it's like maybe someone else was like really good at like their type of side business that they've been building, and it's something that you're really interested in, and you want to learn about that, or like, there's so many different ways that you can provide value without even being a consistently profitable trader. And it's like that's the power of networking is you don't know what someone needs that you might have as a skill that you could provide with, and like they will like basically reinforce and like help each other grow, which is cool.
Mhm. Thank you so much. Yeah, and just to underscore, Traders for a Cause is a great place to network, learn about trading, become a better trader, and help out and make the world better by giving to charity in the process. It's just such a great resource for traders out there. And Tanner, if it's okay with you, I'd love to be able to go through a lightning round set of questions, pretty quick answers. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's run it.
Awesome. What would you consider to be your greatest strength as a trader?
Resilience. I've failed super hard lost tons, climbed out of hell basically, and had really dark mental days in this career. But I always like was able to get up and keep going and keep fighting for sure.
If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice at the start of your trading journey, what would it be? And do you think you would have listened to yourself?
I'd say get a hold of your red days because that was like my biggest downfall is just like losing sight of a single day of how much it can impact you for like your whole month because you're just getting lost and frustrated. You just want to be green on the day. You don't accept the loss. Being able to think about big picture, like if I could have done that early on, I would be so much less stressed overall throughout the beginning of my journey. Um, I don't know if I would have listened though, honestly, because a lot of this career too is just trial by fire.
Are there any areas of your trading that you're still currently working to improve on?
Oh, always. It's like if you don't, like you're lying to yourself. It's like you always want to get better. I want to get better at adding, like when my really best setups are there. I think that's something I'm still kind of hesitant on. And there are times where like I tell myself, I'm like literally talk to myself out loud. I'm like, this is doing what you needed to do. Like you need to add here, Tanner. Like you have to add size here. So it's like that's still something I need to do. Because but maybe I had like a fear of the loss being too big. So it's like for sure that's something I still need to work on as a trader.
What's the best piece of trading advice you've ever been given or heard?
Keep going. Keep going. My mentor Kyle always says this, if this career was easy, everyone would do it. Like you have to build scar tissue and understand like it's going to take you way longer than you think it is to like make it as a trader, but you just have to keep going. It's just like it's just consistent effort and don't give up.
Are there maybe one or two actionable steps that traders can take in the next couple days that can help them improve their consistency?
Try implementing more process oriented trading. Think about process oriented trading. It's a hard thing when, you're so attached to results because obviously we do have this big scoreboard as a trader, but, try things like the daily report card. Look at your habits on a day-to-day basis. Look at how you're sleeping, look at how you're eating. Like it's like, like truly really trying to understand this stuff in detail. Those are like action items that they seem small, but like you going to bed an hour earlier and getting an extra hour of sleep so you can think better and perform better can make all the difference. So it's like start doing stuff like that.
What do you think is the biggest similarity between trading and exercise, powerlifting, strength training?
Being able to take just the daily process that you can do as like a strength athlete or just from working out in general, like and bring it over to the trading side of things is like being able to understand that like the discipline you have to go to the gym all the time and make it a part of your life is like bring some sort of aspect of that discipline over to your trading, whether it's like you're saying I'm only going to take two trades today. It's like okay, well only take two trades, like be disciplined and like fight that feeling because like we still have those feelings of like I don't want to go to the gym, like ugh, but it's like but you go and do it anyway. So it's like oh I want to take a third trade, but I'm not going to because I know big picture process says to do this and respect it. Stuff like that.
Whether it's trading or lifting, do you believe we're capable of doing far more than we believe we can?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like the ceiling in this game is just like it's higher than you realize for most people, and it's I think thinking big is like a really good attribute, especially as an entrepreneur, as a trader, right? Because we normalize conversations about money. We normalize conversations about making millions and stuff. And so, when I hear people, it's funny, like when I hear people saying like, "Oh yeah, that guy's doing so well, like he's making like 200K a year," which is still a good amount of money. I'm not trying to like discount this at all, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm like I want to push 2 million a year. Like, I want to, that's I want to push these big numbers. And just think people don't realize how much we actually are capable of. And in terms of like a kind of comparison, even for like lifting, so I lifted with Lance. I've lifted Lance a few times now, but Lance hasn't deadlifted in years and years and years. And I was like, hey, come deadlift with me today. He's like, all right, let's do it. Like, let's run it. And so he hadn't deadlifted more than like 200 pounds, I think, in like over 10 years. And it was just something he just hasn't really trained at all. It's like there was no reason for it, but like he has really good technique and good form. So like I knew he had it in him to lift something decent. And so I was like, I'm just gonna keep like upping the weight and like making sure you have good technique, and then like we'll call it when I feel like it's relatively a safe area to call it. And so I'm loading up kilo plates. So it's like if any of you ever trained on kilo plates, it's like you can't really tell how much weight it is until like you really start to calculate it and add it up, especially if you've never seen it before. So I ended up loading the weight up to 374 pounds. Lance pulls it, crushes it. And I was like, how much do you think that was? He's like, maybe a little over 300, like 315. And I was like, 374. And he was like, blown away. He's like, I didn't even know I could do that. So it's like, yeah, it's like we are so much more capable of them. Like the ceiling is limitless. And just you have to have that mentality in a lot of stuff in life. And you're just, it's growth mindset. Growth mindset. That's the focus.
And Tanner, for those listening who would like to learn more about you, how you trade, how you lift, or maybe even contact you, how can they do so?
Yeah, so you can add me on Instagram. I'm really big on Instagram. Like that's my main platform that I try to communicate with a lot of people on. It's at the Strong Trader. My Twitter, or X as it is now, is starting to definitely grow. Again, it's just at the Strong Trader. You can DM me on Instagram. You can DM me on Twitter. I have links as well to one-on-one coaching. If any of you guys are interested in any of the processes I've talked about, like a lot of my one-on-one coaching focuses on how to build these processes and understand like accountability wise what it takes to kind of go through this and whatnot and help you grow as a trader. So it's something I love to coach. It's something I love to teach. And if you want to get in contact with me for like a consultation, I have those links in my bio on Instagram, or you can just DM me. We can chat and kind of go from there.
Tanner, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. We got to talk about a lot of topics. We got to go in depth about a few topics, and I really appreciate it. I think this will be helpful for the listeners out there. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. Really appreciate it. And everyone at Investors Underground. It's been awesome.
We hope you enjoyed this interview on the Investors Underground podcast. We have more great interviews that we believe you might also like, so don't forget to subscribe. You'll be notified of upcoming releases the moment they become available. Thanks for watching.